was a blackout in New York City. It was August 14th in 2003, and if you know anyone in New York or from New York or who lived there at the time, you will know that everybody had these like amazing memories of, you know, starting things on fire and dancing in celebration around them in the darkness, and I don't know, getting free ice cream from every restaurant on the corner because all the dairy products were going to go bad. And so this is my story about that night. And things you need to know: I was 23 and from Wisconsin, and I had been in New York since I was 17, and I was in love. And he was, let's see, he wore black socks with shorts, and he wore kind of Bill Cosby sweaters, and he knew the words to like every speech Winston Churchill had ever given. And there was something about his, you know, his mind. It was like he could set things on fire with the power of his mind, and I just was like 23 and head over heels about this. And I'm 23 also, and I'm standing on the Upper West Side as all of a sudden I notice that the lights, you know, all of the traffic is starting to have problems because all the intersections are, you know, getting confused. The traffic lights aren't working, and I'm starting to notice that all these stores are closing, and, you know, that there's just no lights anywhere. It's the afternoon, so at first it's not that intense, but, you know, as it starts to get darker and darker, I mean, it's really dark, and I kind of get excited because, you know, what's more romantic than to find, you know, your boyfriend on the Upper West Side of Manhattan in the middle of a huge New York City blackout and figure out how you're going to spend the time. So I cross Central Park and I go to his apartment, and, you know, he eventually shows up there. I live in Brooklyn, so I even had, you know, like a good excuse and kind of this like, you know, help me, it's so scary. So it was awesome, and so he shows up, and, you know, I mean, it was just, it was like a 1960s, you know, like Woodstock show, except it was all of us New Yorkers, and the, you know, people who, like, you didn't know had guitars got their guitars out, and everyone's playing on stoops and singing all these songs and getting this free ice cream, and it's so great. And so he and I go to his apartment, and, you know, it gets darker and darker, and we light candles, and we, you know, I don't know, talk about the first things we ever memorized when we were little, and think of all the words to We Didn't Start the Fire, and like do all the things that you do when you're in love and you're 23. And so the night goes on, and I forgot to mention something important, which is that I was so in love with this person that I crafted for him. So I made him two things that I think every man should have. One, I made him a decoupage picture frame of, you know, taking the text from the first Shakespearean play we had ever seen together and putting a picture of us inside of it. So obviously he'd wanted one of those forever. And then especially, I made him a pot, like a small clay pot that I decorated with for Halloween. With polka dots and a like black cat, and it was to keep his pencils in. You know, again, something that had been on his wish list for a long time. You're welcome. And so, okay, so, you know, now we've had this great night. We have not had sex. Okay, we have not had sex. But we wake up in the morning. A lot of people had sex that night, though. There are probably people here who were conceived that night. Anyway, so I wake up in the morning, and he goes to work. He like has to, and things are starting to come back on, and he leaves me in his apartment alone, and the power starts to come back on. And, you know, I sit down at the computer because I'm like, well, I want to know what the hell happened. You know, all of New York City was like out of power for a whole night. What happened? So I get on the internet, I turn on the computer, and an autosave recovery file comes up. And it asks, do you want to save the latest copy of this thing called my journal? And I was like, I totally want to save the latest copy of it. And also, I'm a journal reader. Like, I'm a journal reader. I read his journal. And when I read his journal, what I discovered was that he had been having an affair with a woman he worked with for months. And the journal talked about how she had like come over recently, and when she came over, he took down the decoupage picture frame that I had given him, and he hid that pot with the pencils in it, he put them in the drawer the way he always did when she came over. And, you know, I grabbed those things from his shelves and I took them back and I put them in my bag, and I left the journal open on his laptop or his computer so that he would know when he came home what I had found. And I walked back to Brooklyn in this like exodus of tears and sweat and sun and blackout and, you know, crying and leaving these things like the decoupage picture frame in one garbage can, and then like 20 bucks later, you know, the pencil case thing. And I don't know, I just think back to it now. We learned later, you know, what happened. Some foliage or something set something on fire, and someone didn't do what they were supposed to do. And you know, big things always, I guess, happen in these small ways, and you can learn a lot just in one night.